This is Tommy from Tommy Art and Design. Welcome to another tutorial. We're going to create a minimal illustration of a bus, and as you can see, I have my layers pre-selected on the side. We are going to create this bus out of shapes, mostly squares. And as you can see, I have the image on the bottom layer and I've locked it, and I have a new layer to draw on. I'm going to use the square tool first. I'm going to hit M on my keyboard, and then I'm going to use the pen tool, which is P on the keyboard, to add new anchor points to the square so I can move them around. I'm going to line up these anchor points where I need to move them, and I'm going to use A for the direct select tool to move those into place. If you hit Shift C, you can bend those lines just like that. And if you hit A, you can then round the edges and the corners of the square and make them match up just right on the door. Just like that. Hit Shift X, that will turn that stroke into a shape, but we're going to leave it as a stroke for right now. We hit M on your keyboard for square, and we're going to make another square. And then we're going to go through with the pen tool after we put everything in place and add anchor points again. And this is pretty much the process. Add anchor points, round the edges where needed, move it all into place, and you can create the entire bus like this out of shapes. Later on we'll combine shapes using the Pathfinder tool and the Shape Builder tool. Again, pen tool and the direct selection tool to move everything around, curve the edges, use the anchor point tool when necessary, which is Shift C. Just curve that. Sometimes you have to grab onto those little handles on the anchor points and line them up just right. It's a little hard to see here depending on what your layer color is, but you can change your layer color in the layers panel. And so right here, there's a little more points we're going to have to add. Pen tool, P on the keyboard. Direct selection tool, hit A. Round that edge. Doesn't really matter if you get that one perfect. Doesn't really matter if you get any of these perfect. This is just an exercise in how to build with shapes. It doesn't have to be exactly right. If you were creating something for a manual, then maybe you want to have everything exact, but this is more for learning purposes. There you go, you hit Shift X and you can see that that's the whole shape. Now we're going to create this other shape around the outside of the door, so we'll have to cut this out. I'll show you how to do that. First we'll get all these in place. This is maybe a little tricky. Pen tool, A for the direct selection tool, pen tool, add these anchor points so I can get everything just right, and then use the direct selection tool to put everything in place. Shift C for the anchor point tool to curve that line. Oh, that got a little, there we go. Then just move those handles, straighten that out. That doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be hidden behind that bumper. One of the great things about Illustrator is that if you mess up or have to hide something like that, you can always go back and fix it and move these anchor points around. I think that's kind of the whole point of this tutorial, is to show you that you can change things as you're going along. P for the pen tool, add an anchor point, anchor point, anchor point, A for the direct selection tool. Move all those in place. I like to try to curve the lines before I round the corners. I think it just works better that way. A little less work to move things around. Then I'm just gonna nudge these up with the arrow key. There we go. Now I want to cut that door out of that shape. So I'm going to arrange and bring it to front. I hit Shift X to change it to a shape. I'm going to adjust it so it goes past the square just a little bit. I hit Command C before I moved that. And I'm just going to cut it out using the Pathfinder tool. Shift X to change it back to a stroke, and I can hit Command F and place that right in place. And there you can see we have the whole bottom finished already, and it's not even been 6 minutes. Now we're gonna do the top half, and we'll do this exactly the same, except for we'll use the shape builder tool to cut out those windows. Here's my base layer for the top. Use I for the eyedropper tool. And we're gonna just do the same process. Direct selection tool, pen tool to add anchor points. Now you have to have these shapes selected to add these anchor points. If it's not selected, then you'll just be creating new lines. So make sure that you have your shape selected before you try to add anchor points with the pen tool. Shift C to give that a little curve. Anchor tool, pull that right in. Just repeating the same process over and over here again. It'll change up just a little bit when we get to the window. Now for the window, M for the square tool, A for the direct selection tool. Line it all up just right to the outside of the shape of the window, and then we'll use the direct selection tool again once we have everything in place to curve the edges. There we go. And of course, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you're going to get as close as you can. Make it look right. And then you hit Shift X, change it to a shape. Shift X, change it to a shape. Select both. Then choose the shape builder tool and hold Option to cut that out. Another way you can support Tommy Art and Design is to visit my TeePublic store, where I create graphics and various illustrations for all types of different merchandise like t-shirts, coffee mugs, phone cases. Check it out at TommyArtDesign.com/linktree to visit all of my shops. I appreciate your support. And moving right along, we're just going to continue the same process over and over again. A lot of the stuff we're going to add in part 2. But I'm just going to hit M for the square tool, hit Shift X to change that into a stroke. Getting a little jiggle there, sorry about that. We're just going to move everything in place. You're going to use the pen tool to create anchor points, the direct selection tool to move things around, the anchor tool to curve the lines. This is the same process all over the bus until we get further along. I'm just going to talk a little bit here and there when we get to the shape builder tool. I'm just going to sit here and let you enjoy the music and watch the tutorial. I think that you'll get the point here pretty quickly. Now here, we use that other shape. We're going to send this shape to the back, and then we're going to select both these shapes. Hit Command C first and copy that. Then use the Pathfinder to cut it out. Then you hit Command F and paste it back in place. There's a little bit left here, but you can select that with the direct selection tool and use the minus anchor point at the top to clip those right off. And it's just a matter of making sure all the lines are right. Getting everything in place. That wasn't too terribly complicated to create this shape. So we're just going to create the windows. They're pretty straightforward. Just curve the edges again. We're going to use the shape builder tool to cut these out. I'm going to select it and hit Shift X, hit Shift X. Shape builder tool is Shift M. And then you just hold down Option to subtract. I'm going to repeat this process again. I know I'm moving fast, but I'm repeating this over and over again. So you might need to watch it for a second before you kind of figure it out, but you'll figure it out. So, do the same process. We're going to hit Shift X, make sure both of them are selected, Shift M, and then hold minus. There you go. You got it. Now we're going to move on to the very top of the bus. You can see our progress so far. It's looking good. And we're just going to worry about these black lines on another layer further on, probably part 2 of the tutorial. So you hit M on the keyboard to get your square tool. You can select A for the selection tool, direct selection tool. You just move these into place. You can select both of those points at the same time. Make sure all the lines line up all the way across. And then you can just round both of those corners at the same time for that little part of the bus that shoots out. B for the selection tool, Shift X turns the stroke into a shape. Now we're just gonna try to do this top all at once. So we're gonna hit M on the keyboard to select the square tool, and then we'll use the direct selection tool to align everything in place. And then it's the same process again. We're going to use the pen tool to add anchor points, and you have to make sure that the shape is selected when you add the anchor points with the pen tool. Then we're going to use the direct selection tool to put all those in place. Around the edges with the anchor tool, which is Shift C on the keyboard. We're going to go through this kind of quickly. There's lots of little edges and corners on the top of this vehicle, so you don't have to choose to be 100% accurate on this, but you see all these. I'm going to go ahead and do it, but I don't think it's completely necessary that you add in all of those things, and unless you're doing this for something that has to be specific. This is just for learning purposes, so we don't have to be 100% accurate to the way the bus looks, but I'm going to go ahead and go through the process. That way you completely understand how to manipulate shapes to draw simple objects. There we go, we're moving right along. Like I said, this is part 1 of this tutorial. It'll probably be broke down in at least 3 parts. We're going to add a little more detail to it later on. And we haven't even got to the wheels yet, so come back for part 2, like and subscribe to the channel. I will be doing tutorials every weekend, I hope. There you go, take a look at how we got so far. I appreciate you. Visit TommyArtDesign.com to see more of my projects or to purchase some swag. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment any questions you might have. Thank you.